Hi guys, Coach Carter here. So we are now going to make a video about snatching. So very complex movement, develops a lot of force and power in your athletes. This is something that I don't do with young kids, right? We're talking about juniors and seniors primarily, kids that have 2 to 3 years under their belt of weightlifting. So our squat progressions are critical for the kids to master. Our total body tiers are critical for our kids to master before we ever get them snatching. So I do love the movement. I think it generates a high rate of force and power in the weight room, which is going to translate to the field. But obviously, it's very technical, and we don't want to have kids that aren't prepared to do this movement lifting a lot of weight. But it will work when utilized properly. So we do use the 3-tier system. So when we're incorporating snatch, we're pretty much using 2 different 3 total progression tiers at the same time. So we have our snatch, high pull, and overhead squat that we're going to go over in a second. But we also utilize our clean, high pull, and front squat as our second total body tier. So I didn't want to just replace clean tiers with squat tiers because I found that if we didn't clean consistently over a 2-3 week period, the kids really lost technique fast. And at the high school age, if you're not repping it out consistently, kids are going to start going back to old habits. So with clean being one of our foundational movements in the program, we utilize both at the same time. So the way we incorporate it is we would have 4 quote-unquote primary lifts during the Monday, Wednesday, and Friday cycle. So we always have an upper, we always have a lower, we always have a total. Now we would just include a purple snatch tier into our workout. So for example, on Monday we would do bench, which is upper body tier 1. We would do snatch high pull, which is a number 2 snatch tier. We would do deadlift, which is a number 2 lower body tier. And then we would do front squat, which is a number 3 clean tier. So you can see we're doing 7 lifts a day. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of exercise. But as I mentioned, we're doing these snatch tiers with kids that are experienced. They're going to move a lot faster and have a lot more training years under their belt. So there's a lot of info I need to get to. So I'm going to try to go at a good pace here. So we do 2 progression movements specifically for snatch. The first one I call it BTM push jerk. So behind the neck. Again, in the video you'll see I'm using a PVC pipe, but all that's happening is I have the bar behind my head to get used to that shoulder flexibility. I'm doing a quick bounce and then pushing the bar up. So in the video you'll see, again, quick bounce and throwing that bar behind my head. So one thing that you have to get used to with the snatch is getting used to having the bar behind, okay? I'm really kind of tight. Preferably you have that bar even further back, but it has to make sure it clears the head to get a good snatch technique, get a good efficient snatch technique worked. I like to lift again for muscle memory for the kids, and it teaches them how to get that bar back behind them. So I like to utilize the PVC pipe, and then once the kids are comfortable, we can start going into the barbell. Again, this is obviously a little heavier. The theme with snatch is you got to get your hands wider. We'll get into more of that in a second, but again, the movement, quick bounce and push. Quick bounce and push. I don't really use weighted versions of this. I just want to get the muscle memory going, get the guys and gals through full range of motion. Okay. A second progression exercise you can do is just a snatch pull. So it's just triple extending with the shrug. I don't have a video, but essentially I got the snatch grip, triple extend, and shrug the shoulders at the top. Triple extend, shrug the shoulders at the top. And again, this can be done on air outside, just getting the kids used to that triple extension with the shrug. Okay, so for the actual tiers, okay, so we start with number 3 and work our way down. Our number 3 tier is overhead squat. I'll first say this movement is difficult, even on air. So please make sure you're starting kids with the air movement, then with a PVC pipe, then with a barbell with no weight, then with a weighted barbell. Because the form can get really bad really fast if too much weight's on the bar. So let me just pull up one of the videos for you. This is me just doing it on air. So again, when the hands are up and out, you're going to feel the chest want to go down and forward a little bit more. The big cues are keep a big chest, keep your eyes up, keep your arms up and out, right? Once those eyes drop, the chest is going to fall forward and then our form is going to go to crap, okay? Go below parallel and keep your heels on the ground. When we are holding the bar, okay, you want to have, let me get to that in a second when I show you a barbell version. But for the on-air version, again, keeping the hands up, okay, keeping the eyes up, trying to go as low as you can with good form. With the squat progressions we talked about earlier, hopefully all your kids are able to go butt below their knees, below parallel with their heels on the ground. Again, if they can't do that, I would definitely not get them into the overhead squat position. I definitely wouldn't work snatch with them, right? Get the kids a good foundation before you advance them into these more difficult Olympic lifts. But overhead squat is a more difficult exercise because the chest wants to fall forward, okay? So after a lot of reps on air, we can go to a PVC pipe or a light bar. I don't want to call them girl bars, but there's these lighter barbells that I believe are 15 pounds, but there's also body bars that have, just black soft material outside of them that are really good to use as a lighter load. But again, focusing on getting that bar behind the head and squatting down into a full below parallel position. Okay, that last rep there, my eyes go down. Bad example, you want to make sure those eyes stay up throughout the entire movement. So again, the chest is going to want to fall forward. Again, force the hands back and the eyes up. Okay, so for the third progression, we would go to a barbell. Okay, again, I recommend you start all your kids, even when they throw them in the weight room, on a barbell with the overhead squat. So there's these rings pretty on a wide end of the bar. They're called snatch rings. There's no knurling. They're really smooth. You want to make sure your kids get their hands outside of that ring, okay? If the kids have really long arms, they'll go a little wider. If they're really short, they'll go a little tighter. But generally, you want to make sure their arms are wide, okay? So again, the bar weighs 45 pounds, and it's a good struggle. I mean, this is a very dynamic, coordinated movement. The bar itself is going to give your kids plenty of load to work with. So again, I don't really have all that shoulder flexibility like I need to do a great snatch. I'd probably need to do a lot more progression before I started doing it with heavy weight. But getting the bar back, keeping the weight on the heels, and getting that butt below the knees. That's kind of the vision we're looking for there. So again, go below parallel, make sure your heels are on the ground. Okay. Now moving into the high pull, okay? So same theory now, if we're talking about snatch, goes along with the clean. If you're able to watch some of the clean videos, I like starting with the high hip, working down to the hang, working down to the ground. My philosophy, what I've based it on of other people's books and videos, is the least amount of distance the kids have to pull, the less that can go wrong, right? So if I'm pulling from the high hip, well, that's a smaller pull than if I was pulling from the hang or from the ground. So I want to start the kids with the easier movement and work my way down. Okay, so probably the biggest cue with this that is not really utilized for the clean high pull is when you're grabbing the bar. I'm just going to show you one hand here. When you're grabbing the bar, it's critical that you really turn those knuckles down as you're gripping. Okay, and you're going to see if I showed you again, as most kids would grip it, watch my shoulder here, it's gonna turn and you're gonna really activate your delts, and that's gonna really help your kids activate the upper trap and delt before they now lift the weight. So that's a big cue. I think that's one that I probably overlooked too long, but I think that's something that's really gonna help your kids, is really focus on turning those knuckles down and activating those shoulders, okay? Again, normal high pull cues: pop the hips, keep bar close to the body. The bar will not travel as far up the chest, okay? So it's probably going to stop in the snatch high pull somewhere around that xiphoid process, that little bone sticking out. If the bar is going higher than that, probably one or two things are happening. Your athlete's grip is too narrow, or their knuckles are up. They're not turned down, okay? If they're turned down properly and they're really activating their upper delts and traps, that bar is going to have to stop right at that xiphoid process, okay? Again, knuckles down, elbows up, get triple extension, finish on the toes. We can do it with dumbbells, but generally with this, since the grip's so critical, we'll do it with a barbell. So here's the video. Let me get our screen back here. Okay, so I'm starting with the high hip. Okay, again, that's right on where that bar is going to stop. Okay, right where that xiphoid process is. Again, I got a little bounce, high hip, triple extend. Bounce, high hip, triple extend. Okay, so if you see the kids finishing like this, it means their knuckles weren't down at an adequate depth when they first started the grip, right? So get those knuckles down and really force those elbows to go up, okay? Second variation now would be from the hang. Most our kids won't do power snatches. They'll probably start at the hang since it's such a dynamic lift, but same. So here's a good example of, so if you can catch this, you start from the beginning. You'll see me turn my hands real quick here. That's kind of what we're looking for, right? Really activate those delts and traps. That's going to really help you guys once you get your athletes bringing that bar over the head. So again, I have a little bounce, but the idea is, again, you're triple extending, bar staying close and nice and tight to the body. Again, it's not going to travel as far up the ribs when compared to the clean high pull. Okay, and then the third variation is now from the ground. So now we got to get good technique as we're in a deadlift position with our lower body, right? Tight feet, big chest, eyes up, but I got a wide grip with my knuckles down. And I like to shrug the thighs on my way up. Gives me a little more power as I begin to enter the high pull phase. So again, with all the high pull variations, I want to make sure I am ending on my toes, right? Ankle, knee, and hip fully extended. Okay. And again, this last pull for me is probably a little high. You can see my elbows starting to go down a little bit closer to even with my wrist. And that's a common error you'll see with your kids. Make sure they got those knuckles down and their elbows up. Okay, moving into the actual snatch. Okay, I'll first get into a point that I really don't mention in any of the videos I put out yet is safety, which, you know, I can probably make a completely separate video about that. You know, clamps, having spotters, and those types of things, because obviously safety is critical when you're dealing with any weight room, but especially high school athletes. Do no harm, right? The doctor's creed. But in regard to snatches, you got to teach missing. So most of your misses will happen in the front. So a kid will get the bar here, and right before they go over their head, they're not able to get under it properly, and it's going to go forward, okay? You know, they obviously want to make sure they're dropping the weight and getting the body back. They don't want to drop the weight on top of them, okay? You don't want to see the kids holding on and having the bar bring them forward, right? Let's talk about a lot of stress on the low back. So you want the kids to ideally drop and get out from out so the weight's in front of them. And obviously the weight's going to bounce around a little bit because it's coming from a pretty high depth. But you just don't want to see the kids, especially when some weight gets on that bar, letting it yank them forward. That's how you throw out, you know, backs and stuff. Once in a while, a kid will get it above their head, but they won't be able to stand up with it. If they feel like it's going back behind them, okay, right? You got to also teach missing when the weight's behind them. They have to let go and walk forward, okay? They can't hang on. Obviously, that can do some serious, that can cause an injury if they're holding on and going backwards. So I definitely, as the coach in a big room with a lot of kids, you got to model that for them. And you're probably going to have kids practice that with PVC pipes so you're not dropping barbells all over the place. Quick side note, Olympic barbells can snap. They're very expensive, so you don't want to cling those things on the ground without rubber weights because they will snap, and that's no fun. Okay, into the snatch videos, okay? A couple cues, again, force through the ground, so we're not jumping up. We're putting force into the ground, triple extension up, keeping the bar close to the body. Okay, again, we want to focus on that same grip we focus on with the high pulls. Pop hips, triple extend, okay? We got to flip the wrist, so right when that bar is, you feel like it's just not going any higher, right through that xiphoid process. That's when I got to drop and flip, okay? The heavier the load, the harder it is to pull up, okay? I watched a, really strong Olympic weightlifter. She was pulling the bar, and it got right above the belly button than when she dropped under it. So the heavier the load, the harder it's going to be to pull up. So the lower you're going to have to squat under to catch it. But again, for most beginning snatchers, they're not going to be doing super, super heavy weight. The variations, again, are high hip, hang, power. And again, the squat catch just means they're practicing going ass to grass to catch it. Okay, so into the videos here, we're starting with the high hip. So again, I have a little bounce. I'm dropping and flipping, okay? I want you guys to listen to the amount of force I'm putting into the ground for just a bar, right? That shows you how much force, or hopefully gives you a visual and an auditory, cue about how hard it is to actually get that thing completely over my head. I think a world record snatch just got done by a guy in Europe. He snatched over 500 pounds, right? To think about how much force that guy had to put into the ground to get that weight up is pretty astounding. But again, for the video, high hip, popping, dropping, flipping. Okay? And again, I am not an Olympic weightlifting coach. I'm sure there's dozens of little intricacies I could pinpoint about myself. I could pinpoint about my kids. With the high school age group, with athletes that are not Olympic lifters, I want the basics covered, and I want them to get the muscle memory to give them the confidence to add some weight with good form. Okay, a lateral view here. Again, I start in the high hip, shrug, triple extend, and drop. Okay, again, that weight could probably get further behind my head. The flexibility is a little tight for me. Okay, my feet are a little wide. I don't have to go into a full squat since I'm just using the bar, but that's kind of the movement we're looking for. Okay, so the hang snatch is where we end most kids, right? If we got an advanced group, if I'm talking varsity football, and I've got them to the point where they're able to snatch with weight, most of the time we'll stop them at hang. Again, because if we're going from the ground, a lot more can go wrong. But, from the hang, again, it's a little longer pull, but same principles, right? Right above the knees, forcefully triple extend, drop, get the bar over the head. Again, my feet land a little wide. You gotta have a nice balanced base. For me, it's comfortable. I wouldn't overcoach that unless the kids are landing way too wide that they're losing balance. So again, that's a good image of the high pull we're working, right? Okay, triple extend. And now when that weight gets right under that xiphoid process, I got to drop and flip. Okay. And then to finish it up again, the power snatch. If I was teaching math, calculus, this would be the last chapter in the book, right? This is the hardest movement we ask our kids to do in the weight room. If they ever get to that point, you're pulling from the ground, dropping, triple extending. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on here, but this is kind of the holy grail of exercises in our program. So again, from the ground, popping, dropping, flipping. Again, nice deadlift form at the bottom with a wide grip, force to the ground. Boom. And again, you can hear that thud. That's not for me jumping. That's for me dropping with force underneath the bar. Okay, quickly in terms of programming. So again, it's very similar to the clean. We do the linear model, so we go high volume, low intensity, and the closer we get to testing, the higher intensity we'll go. We won't go any more than 6 reps to keep power output high. So our Olympic lifts, we're not talking so much about volume. We're talking more about keeping power output at a high level. We will gradually decrease the doubles by the time we get ready to test. We generally don't test snatches. We generally just test cleans. But if you really love the exercise and you got advanced kids, you can go ahead and test it. Again, for an example of our program, so we would start with something like 4x6. You can start with dumbbells if you want. This was the first time we did snatches with these kids, but 4x5 hang, I would probably start with high hip, okay, just to get them used to that pull, okay. Then probably the next week I would go into 4x4 hang, 5x3, 4x3. Again, you could do doubles. I'd probably stay away from singles unless you have really advanced kids or you're doing some sort of test. But I think if you're trying to get the most out of your athletes, I think this is a great place to go into the snatch direction. Again, make sure they're ready athletically for it. But I've referenced, obviously some great football programs, but, De La Salle, I've watched a lot of their weight room stuff, and they're a big snatch program. They got advanced kids, and they're doing advanced workouts. But I think, again, this could add some bang to your buck for your higher weight lifting age kids. So thanks for watching, and see you next time.